Hello, everyone, and very warm welcome to the IN Knowledge series. Our topic for today is financial reporting and scaling up. As founders, a lot of time and energy is invested toward building your product, talking to customers, refining your product, selling it, and in turn, getting revenues. As you start making expenses and earnings, financial reporting becomes really important. So it gives you and your team a very good snapshot of where you stand, and in turn helps you strategize. Of course, as you go ahead and raise capital, it will also help your investors and board members gain insights and advise you accordingly. So today's session focuses on the importance of financial reporting and how to scale the finance function in your business. We will also discuss the key regulatory requirements applicable to emerging growth stage companies and who are the key stakeholders for financial reporting. I'm Kanchi Daya from the Indian Angel Network, and joining us today is Mr. Rohit Arora, partner at Walker Chandok and Company LLP. He has extensive experience in working with early stage companies for setting up their finance function and also helping them scale up. Rohit has over 15 years of experience in statutory audit, accounting advisory, assurance, US GAAP, IFRA, and Ind AS. As an audit partner, he is responsible for planning, managing, and timely completion of audit engagements for large international and Indian and multinational clients, both listed as well as large unlisted entities. He has also advised clients on complex accounting issues like consolidation, IFRS, business combinations, leases, deferred tax, and much more. He has been involved in capital raising initiatives of various companies, including renewable power companies, and has assisted them to raise capital in the form of equity and debt in multiple capital markets, including the New York Stock Exchange, Singapore Stock Exchange, and Indian stock exchanges. Prior to joining Walker Chandok and Co. In 2018, Rohit was associated with Ernst & Young for about 12 years. Welcome, Rohit, and thank you for your valuable time today. The founders are eager to hear from you.
Thank you, Kanchi. Good to hear about myself in such elusive terms. Generally, I'm not used to hearing it, but it was really good on your part to introduce myself. When I actually got an invitation to present something in front of entrepreneurs and founders, I thought this is probably not the best. I am probably not the best person to guide them, because they are the people who have themselves created an idea, who are taking it to a fruition and developing their products. So probably I'm not the best person who doesn't have himself has been able to identify an idea for himself. But then I thought maybe whatever I know myself, I should be able to help them out and probably be able to add some value to their wisdom and develop themselves for future whenever they have to scale up and look into the financial reporting. That's a brief setup that we would be discussing about the financial reporting, how to scale up, regulations, what is the importance of financial reporting, and why we want to invest time on it. That's also a feature we would be capturing in our discussion today. So with your permission, Kanchi, I'm just hosting a presentation on a screen, if that's okay.
Sure, please. Thank you.
Is that visible now?
We'll just give it a couple of seconds. Yes, it is.
Sure. So discussing about financial reporting, why we should do financial reporting and why it is important. Let us bring into analogy about cricket, one of our favorite pastime for India. If we were to given a scenario that, okay, we all want to play cricket, let's have a match for 5 overs. And both the teams play for 5 overs. And thereafter, after end of 5 years, we say, let's play again a 5-over match. How many times we would like to do that before maintaining a scorecard? So the scorer which comes into the picture gives us a picture that, okay, you have scored 100 runs, you scored 90, you are the winner. So unless until there is a scorer and we are able to report on that, this would become a monotonous exercise. But once we are maintaining a record, that becomes something which is interesting and exciting for all us to play as well as watch. So financial reporting is a bit like a scorer for a cricket match, and which is where financial reporting actually becomes important for all the founders and startups as well. So why is financial reporting required? We understood from a cricket match that scorer is like a financial reporting for the cricket match, but why is financial reporting really required for companies who are setting themselves up? So financial reporting would always give analysis to investors, creators. They would also bring a fact with respect to financial integrity and credit worthiness of the company they have set up. I'm still not really sure that I'm being able to communicate, but why financial reporting is important is today you are on top of things as you are starting up, but over the period you would yourself get focused into multiple activities of a startup, and that as that startup is scaling up, this part would probably start moving away from your attention span, which is where you would need to set up the systems as you are just developing your idea right now. And just to bring an analogy further, I think I heard a TED talk from Bill Gross some time back. So he had pointed out that there are 5 things which are needed for startup to succeed. Uh, First one was timing, though he thought idea is the most important, but when he studied it in detail, he found it that timing of an idea is probably the more important thing than even the idea. Team was really important as a second step. Third was idea. And then fourth and fifth were business modeling and funding. So though we are not talking about the first three one, idea, team, and uh, idea, team, as well as the timing of an idea, we would be talking about the aspect which is related to business projections as well as the funding. So as we are supposed to go out in the market and raise funds, we are supposed to present a financial reporting. We are supposed to give a financial statements out to our investors to look in. Okay, this was an idea. Maybe we have worked on 2 years on this idea, and this is what we have achieved. And this is what in the future we would be able to achieve. So the most important thing which in a startup is timing. For that timing, you need to achieve funding. And funding on a timely basis would only come if your financial reporting and the future projections for the business are there in place. I've seen multiple startups struggle with this, and because they have not paid attention to it over the period. Why it happens is as soon as you approach an investor, you go back and ask them, okay, we need to raise fund. And they say, okay, we will run through your diligence cycle, which would include both financial, tax, as well as legal diligence. And as you are doing a financial and tax diligence, the challenges start coming up, which founders have not thought about. And investors are educating them, okay, this is the challenge we have found in your financial statements. This is a hole which we find in your business projections. And by the time you are able to correct it and get it sorted with the investor, you lose out maybe a month in that process. And if you are trying to time an idea into the market, a month could be very critical, which is where financial reporting is also a feature which as a founder you should work upon. As you are growing, your financial reporting cycle should become more and more robust to take the idea forward. As I talked about raising capital and performing audits, financial reporting is required. That's a regulatory cycle which we also need to follow. And when we are raising capital, our financial statements as well as our future plan become really relevant. Now, this is another aspect. Going back to the analogy which we did for cricket. We are now facing a last over, and we are supposed to score 10 runs of 6 balls. For first 5 balls, you have scored 9 runs, and last ball you needed 1 run. You scored 1 run, and you said, "I won the match." And then the scorer come up and says, "Sorry, I miscalculated. You were supposed to earn 12 runs, not 10. You said I would have played my ball very differently than the way I played my last ball." So if I'm able to get the correct picture from my financial reporting, I would probably take decisions in very different manner. To take a decision, you could look into the trend analysis, uh, I can give you an example which a trend can be built up. Uh, there was a scenario a company said we have not grown over last year by 10, more than 10%, and that is has been our CAGR for last 3 years. But if somebody was smart enough to build up a trend in last 3 months, for first 9 months they were actually going down, and they had changed a product mix and pricing strategy, post which in last 3 months they had grown by 24%. So that uh, how you pick up a trend would actually evaluate you into a different decision. You may say, okay, this approach is working wonders for me. I am being able to grow at 24%. Let me probably follow this cycle forward, not continue to focus on what I was doing for last 3 years. Because an idea also needs adaptability. An idea is in your mind, but how you adapt to that idea is also very important. And from adapting to that idea, you will need to make decisions about the various approaches, and those approaches would come through when you have a correct data in front of you. Trend identification, we have spoken. Compliance is a regular feature which India has. I think we will cover up in subsequent slides, whereby we would say how many compliances a startup is supposed to undertake and whether that are practical or feasible or not. And then another analogy which generally comes in, death and tax are only two relevant things. Those are only two truths in the world. So because government want to collect taxes, and for collection of taxes, they need financial reporting. So that becomes important for you to follow a correct practice uh, and prepare your financial statements in an ethical manner, because ethics takes you longer. Uh, if you have built up your financial statements or an idea on a assumption that you would be able to sail through various unethical practices, at some stage you will find a challenge against them. So it's always good to be on a ethical side and a compliance side with respect to your financial reporting. That's a very brief why financial reporting is required. It's very important to understand that in addition to an idea, you need to plan for your business. You need to bring in your ideas together to raise funds. As a founders, you don't have unlimited capacity or purse with you to raise capital. To raise capital, you will require fundings. You will require to prepare a business plan. You will need to maintain your financial statements. And to do all that, you need to have a sound financial reporting practice in place. Just for a benefit of all the people who are on the call, what are financial statements? We have been talking about that you need to prepare a financial statement, but what is meant by financial statement? So it includes a balance sheet, which is as on date scenario, statement of profit and loss, cash flow statement, statement of change in equity, comparative informations, and financial statement notes. Notes are basically explaining how these financial statements have been prepared. So these are very brief contour of how a financial statement is structured. If anybody wants to understand it further, I would suggest download a annual report of Reliance just to understand how big a financial statement can be. It's running into approximately 140 pages. That's how big the financial statements are as you grow, and that becomes as complex as you can think of. So, but who are all the users of financial statement? For a company, it would be creators, financiers, potential investors. Government would always be interested in what kind of an activity are happening. Employees become relevant, important. Shareholders become important. Employees, whosoever is taking a variable pay in the form of financial performance, he would like to know what kind of a financial performance is happening. Unless until we are able to throw up that information, how would we reward employees? If as a startup you don't have unlimited funds, you will like to enter into a arrangement whereby you will like to give them variable pay basis the performance of an idea. So to measure a performance, you need financial reporting, and which is where how you will make those decisions. And how a finance function generally gets structured as you grow, it would ultimately get linked to all your financial departments, be it to production in case you have a manufacturing setup. Sales and marketing would anyway report into finance function. Research and development would have to keep on reporting. Procurement, HR, admin, after sales, all would have in subsequent period as you grow up, linkage to the finance function. So finance would become a holding glue for all the functions to operate, because ultimately cash has to move out from finance function and cash has to come into the finance function. Cash is loosely used both for cash and bank. We don't actually advise people to deal in cash, but cash is being used more like a intermediary term. So that's how a glue has to form, and finance then reports to the founder or a CEO of the company, whereby they are able to take appropriate decision based on the data which is available. Moving on, I would probably cover a couple of subjects with respect to which are relevant for uh, you to understand from a perspective of financial statements. Not divulging upon what kind of a balance sheet it is or statement of profit and loss, but what kind of so you should evaluate from your company's perspective. Working capital is one of them. One is that you have invested into a long-term assets, you have invested into machinery or other stuff. But the real challenge for default comes in when you are short on working capital. I've seen most of the promoters who built up a company do not budget for working capital properly. I was very recently working with one of our startup, and they have a brilliant idea, and they had actually entered into a multiple contracts with their customers, but they were staring at a default. Even when they had a good sales order book, their sales were happening, but still they were on the verge of default. And why it was happening? It was happening because they had agreed to pay their creditors in 30 days, but their debtors were paying them in 180 days. That's how their contracts have been structured. Now that mismatch was resulting in they needed a capital which was always required in addition to capital required for the capital assets, which is say like fixed assets or property, plant and equipment. They needed capital to be infused for working capital as well, which was never budgeted in their business plan as well as their thought process. So either they needed to correct themselves, whereby they corrected themselves to uh, change their contracts, whereby debtors would get realized within 30 days and creditors would be paid in 30 days, or creditors would also be paid in 180 days. Till that time, this mismatch was there, and working capital had an impact on the company, and the promoters were living in a hell, whereby creditors were calling them every day that our payment is due, and they were always dipping into their reserves, which they had built for capital assets or expansion of their company. They were paying the creditors out of it. So one of the important component is to focus on working capital. So if we were to just get into a theoretical thing, working capital actually represents funds which are required to be available to the business to operate on day-to-day business. As I mentioned, how your creditors, current assets versus non-current assets, and current assets versus current liability structure, that is what working capital requirement is. So you need to actually think of how much working capital you require on a permanent basis and how much working capital is temporary in nature. Something in permanent, something in say in terms of a permanent working capital is that your contracts would always have a longer lag as compared to your creditor. So you will continue to have a lower, a certain amount of capital always blocked in the business. And some could be a scenario which is very unique, that you have entered into a specific contract or you have undertaken expansion for limited time frame, you need that capital. So you need to decide upon in your business plan, in your business planning, that what is required as a permanent working capital and what is temporary. Temporary could be funded out of various means, but for permanent working capital, my advice to you as a founder would be you should always consider this as a part of capital raise. That when you are raising a capital, you should consider what permanent working capital you would require for running the business. That's a common pitfall I've seen, promoters not accounting for what kind of a working capital they need to run further. Just in a definition term, working capital represents total current assets less current liabilities. That's just a arithmetical formula to show. But in concept, working capital is the amount which you require to run operations on day-to-day basis. Another aspect as a founder, which you should consider very significantly, is how you should create budgets and what kind of a budgetary control you should have. I think I've seen founders working on budgets very diligently. They always create budgets which are very relevant, very important, how they should be actually structured. But when I go back and ask, okay, how you measure and exercise a control over the budgets, I found founders lacking over there. It's good to create a budget, but what is the difference? How you would be able to exercise a budgetary control would be relevant for you. A budget is a simple thing that you estimate your revenue and expenses. It's a preparation of comprehensive operating and financial plans. You are estimating for future period. That's a simple budget. I think that I expect all the founders should be knowing. But what should be a budgeting control? That's very important for you guys to understand. That as and when a budget is prepared, you should be able to exercise control, whereby you say, we have estimated that on employee of certain degree, we would pay 100 rupees. So how are we paying 100 rupees or we are paying 110? If we are paying 110, whether that needs a change in the budget or operating plan, or we need to take a corrective action so that that 110 becomes 100 again. Unless until you start controlling your cost, I think there is a concept of cash burns in startup, but I have seen that people consider a cash burn to be normal exercise. But as a founder, you at one stage has to become profitable. So to become a profitable, you need to monitor how much cash you are burning. That cash burn could also come through budgets. That over the period, my cash burn would go down. And how it would go down? One is sales is a primary figure which I would work upon. Whereas against that, I also need to work upon my cost and how the cost have to be expended. At some stage, I will have to keep a tab on the cost which are being undertaken. I think a phrase I've heard, there should be method in madness. You are burning cash, that's a madness for outside world, but there should be a method around that madness, which is what I would suggest to all of you to consider. Budgeting is a simple exercise, but it has to be as comprehensive as it can be done. If you can develop a proper model with respect to how the revenue would grow, it's very easy to say that we would like to undertake a sale of 10 crores in the year. But how will that 10 crores be achieved? Give an example, if say somebody was working in a hospitality industry, how will you achieve your 10 crores? You would probably break it down into 5 segments. You will say, this is what I'm expecting from tourists, and this is I'm expecting from corporates, this is I'm expecting from say direct bookings. Giving you an example, this is a hypothetical situation. Now that is the level of detailing, or somebody would like to go back and say, okay, if I'm targeting 2 crores from a corporate, which corporates are going to give me this money? I will probably target these 10 corporates to earn out of it. And that is going to be a primary driving factor. Okay, if I am going to target these 10 corporates, I probably need to hire 5 people who can follow them up. So that becomes a cost associated with achieving that sales number. So one thing which we generally say that you should understand what are the agreed objectives for the year and how the income would be available against it, what expenses you want to incur, construct a draft budget, review the budget surplus deficit, and I would suggest you have a sensitivity always prepared that in case we go ahead by this number, we would probably modify and do this as an expense. Make necessary changes. You should have a formal process for sign-offs. I think this is something I have found in startups missing, that they don't have a process of sign-off. They believe whatever has been done on an email, that's sufficient. And when I actually went back and asked a founder of a startup, can you show me your final budget? What you agreed in a final budget? He had pulled out 10 emails for me. And he himself could not figure out at later stage which one was the final, because each one said it's the final one. And then there were iterations in it. So if you want to follow up a control, you should have what is your base document, which is final, and then start measuring actual results against it. Once you start measuring the results against it, then only you would be able to take corrective actions against it. So my humble submission to all the founders would be, budget is a concept you all work upon. but maybe detailing in the budget and then controlling the budgets is probably the most important aspect as a founder you need to work upon. You can actually have multiple types of budgets going for you. Some could be duration based, some could be long term, some could be capacity based, some could be function based. So you have to think of whether you want to build up a target for next 5 years. That is a duration based. I think a lot of the corporates have actually set up their vision 2020, and they actually thought that in 2010 when they're budgeting, they would budget it for next 10 years. All the plans were working fine till 2019, and then 2020 happened, and all their long-term budgets have fallen apart. So these kind of things you always need to be considerate of, that when you are bringing a long-term project, that should have a short-term components against it. Nature of receipt expenditure could be revenue, capital budgets. You can have a capacity-based budget, flexible budget or a fixed budget. Flexible budget would be, giving an example, if you increase your production or you increase your sale, what should be my targeted expenditure against could be. And some of those could be fixed, like rent should be fixed, that I am expecting this is the, till the time I reach 100 crores, this is the amount of rent I will incur. Maybe once you reach 100 crore, your staff strength goes up, you need to incur additional rent. So in the current scenario, I actually doubt anybody is spending on rent. Uh, Everybody's trying to work from home and bring that rental expense down. And it could be production wise also, whereby you can say one is a sales target, one is a production target, there could be purchase target, and there could be finance target. There could be ultimate multiple targets which could be worked upon. So once you create these multiple budgets, then an overall operating plan should be created for you. Moving on, so this is a very, I would not say best of the things to discuss to the founders, because they are working on an idea, but then government has brought multiple regulations for us to work upon. Just coming across, I think if you look at various regulations would apply to you, whether your structure is a company, then Companies Act would become applicable. If your structure is a partnership firm, LLP Act would become applicable. GST is an overarching act which would become applicable to you any which way. Income Tax Act, labor laws. Thankfully, I think in the month of September, government has now merged 9 acts into one act, which is labor. So now you don't need to follow 9 separate acts. You can work on one act to work upon, which is Code of Social Security. It would cover gratuity, provident fund, contract, apprentice working. All those acts would now become applicable in one Code of Social Security. It has not been notified, but that is something which is expected that it would happen. And this is very important for probably all the startups who work in. This is a significant change which has happened in our labor law. So all of you should go back and assess what kind of impact on the business would come in. Give an example, a lot of startups were working with gig workers, and they were not considering a provident fund to be applicable to them. Under this Code of Social Security, that would become applicable. Somebody working on a 1-year employment was not considered applicable for gratuity, but under this new Social Security, they would become applicable for gratuity. So your annual operating plans, your business plans would need to now consider what kind of a benefit you are getting out of this new Social Security Act versus the losses you will incur. So you need to tweak your business plans and bring in those in your current operating plan. Then there is a RBI Act which need to be followed with respect to how investment comes in. One of the common themes which I worked with startups is with respect to how to flip the structure. I think till 2005, companies were allowed to list directly on foreign stock exchange. Now that regulation was changed in 2004 or 2005 after systems cities listing. Government wanted to promote Indian stock exchange, and that restricted a lot of Indian corporates who could raise funds outside, not in India. Giving an example, Make My Trip raised capital in New York Stock Exchange, not in India. they were able to raise capital from New York Stock Exchange, not from India, primarily because Indian investors were not able to appreciate the business model MakeMyTrip was working upon at that point of time. And in US, investors had probably seen similar structures uh, run successfully in US, so they were ready to bet on it. So how they worked around it? They created a separate company in Mauritius. They flipped the structure altogether outside India and then raised capital in a Mauritius entity. That's a common platform which was used earlier. Now, that is also very important to understand what kind of a regulations would really come in this aspect. There would be a lot of litigations which would come from tax department because they believe you are trying to save tax, but your main motive is to list outside and raise capital. Raising capital would be your primary feature, one to expand the business, and at a later stage giving exit to your investors as well. So what is the most prominent one? To raise capital from outside on a capital exchange. That should be your final frontier, that I should believe. Something as a farm act, I think we are hearing about a lot of protests from farmers, but that farm act has actually got a lot of impact on how businesses are being run. I'm working with a couple of startups who are in agriculture sector. They believe that their business model, which was working on certain presumptions, would completely undergo a change, and they need to very quickly modify their business plan and to bring up them to up to the speed. Something like intellectual property, income, IT Act, sexual harassment for women at workplace, Shop and Establishment Act, Patent Act, all these would become applicable to you, and you need to make compliances against it. One interesting feature which you guys should always be considered is India is a federal country, whereby center has prescribed certain regulations, states have their own set of regulations. Now, just to give you an example, Farm Act is something center has prescribed three regulations which are modifying what was being prevalent for last 60 years. I think Sir Chotu Ram brought those regulations in 1934 or so, and post that, even in post independence, those regulations have continued in that manner. Now, if these acts remain valid even after this protest, states are expected to bring their own act. I think state of Punjab and Chhattisgarh have already passed an act which is absolutely different from what the central act is. So you need to be mindful that which state you are operating, and as you venture out into a separate state, what kind of a regulations would become applicable to you. Giving an example which could be most relevant to you, in Northeast, professional tax is still relevant. In Maharashtra, professional tax is relevant, but in state of Haryana, professional tax is not there. So you need to be considerate that uh, as you operate into different jurisdiction, which jurisdiction would bring in what kind of a regulations for you. So you need to be absolutely clear before expanding into new territory, what kind of a rules regulations would follow upon you and how that would work. Uh, Another very interesting composition which has come in, I think various states are doing that regulation that maybe you need to hire 75% of your workforce from that relevant state where you are operating. Now, how to overcome that or how to actually work around that? So first you need to know whether that is applicable to you in the jurisdiction you are planning to expand. If you are planning to expand, say in Haryana, Haryana has very recently passed that regulation. Gurgaon is the favorite destination for startups also to operate. Now, you may actually want to bring in that probably at some stage, if you are not able to get talent within Haryana, you will need to ask your staff to migrate to Haryana. So that could be an additional cost for you at some point of time. I think I've seen companies migrate from locations because they were not able to attract talents over there. And as I always say, if you want to succeed as a startup or a company, a team is probably more important than timing for me. Unless until you are able to build up the team, you would not be able to expand. And to build up a team, these regulations would come in with different kind of interpretations for you to follow. And that's how your business plans have to be modified. I think one of the very interesting thing was that people used to consider that we will bring cheap labor from, and this is an infrastructure sector, that in infrastructure sector they would bring labor from UP and Bihar. But after passage of this regulation, they have to hire labor from Haryana. Haryana labor would be at least 40% costlier. So either you change your geographical location, or if you have to comply with regulation, you may have to get those people migrated into Haryana permanently and get them domiciled here, or you need to hire labor from Haryana only, which would mean your costing would go up significantly. Which is where, while you are following up all the regulations, you have to be very clear that which law and which regulation becomes applicable to you in the various geographies you are working upon. So this is after covering about the regulations, I would move on to the key stakeholders. And while we are talking about key stakeholders, I would say how to scale up your finance function as your company is growing. That is probably a second aspect which would become relevant for you. Uh, so just to bring in, who are all the stakeholders in a financial reporting process? You would have a statutory auditor, you would have an internal audit, chief financial officer, a tax advisor, a payroll accountant, a banker, and a lender, which would all be interlinked to a finance function. I've taken chief financial officer out of the finance function for one specific reason, that he's in your leadership team. He's not expected to work on day-to-day operations. He's the one guy who would probably be an extension of leadership overseeing a finance function. And he's probably the most important person to have in this chain. Once he is in place, you would probably get all others in place. So he becomes one of a key stakeholder for you as you grow further. Giving an example, I think I was working with one of a company who was going out for a listing in US. And when I met the promoter, though I knew him for 3 to 4 years, I just mentioned to him, you are venturing into a jurisdiction outside India. And I understand the reason for it, because you would be able to tap capital only outside India because your business model is understood by those investors. But this would be a very difficult exercise and it would not be easy. So I got a very peculiar answer from him. I understand that, but would it be more difficult than setting up a company and bringing this idea into this stage that I can raise capital? I said, no, it would not be. But when we had completed that exercise, maybe we had that cycle going for 11 months. And post 11 months, promoter came back and said to me, you had mentioned that it would not be easy. I totally appreciate it. Was equally difficult to set up a company and to raise capital in a foreign jurisdiction. It was probably equally difficult for me because this 11 months have taken a complete toll on me. And what was the reason why it took a toll on a founder was that his finance function had not scaled up to the extent company had already scaled up. Company was already a say 100 crore company, but finance function was primitive by having 2-3 accountants. And when that was put in a regulatory meriscope by all the stakeholders, be it bankers, lawyers, auditors, uh, the regulators of that relevant country, the finance function started to crumble. And then the company had to rely upon external advisors to bail them out because they could not have set up the functions immediately. So my advice to all the founders would be that as you are scaling up, you should start looking in what kind of functions you need to add. In your finance function, do we need to diversify? Do we need to bring a separate tax guy into the system? Do we need to bring in an internal auditor to start looking in various practices? Statutory auditor would come as a statute, but do we want a statutory auditor of a repute to come in and help us out? Because as a statutory auditor also, they bring a lot of value to the proposition while they keep on pointing out errors, but they also make a lot of recommendations at how you can improve upon. Something like bankers, as you grow, your banking relationships would become very relevant. Currently, you might be having one account, but as you grow into multiple geographies, how your bankers help you out becomes a very important thing. Because, give an example, there is a company who has operations in Northeast. So they are not able to collect their collection for 2 days, though they have collected at their relevant places, but still the money doesn't reach to them in 2 days. And for 2 days, if we were to compute interest for a year, they're losing 3 crores a year. And when they actually went ahead and discussed with various bankers, they were able to get that cycle down from 2 days to 1 day. And by virtue of that, they only saved 1.5 crores. So that is where responsibilities of bankers come in. Lenders, you will continue to raise capital, both for working capital as well as for long-term purposes. So lenders become an equal party to it. You will not always depend upon private equity or an anchor investor to keep on funding. You would probably like to have a mix of both lending as well as capital. And that's where lenders and their requirements would become very important for you to understand. And I'm not saying this has to come up in a day, but as you are moving up, as you are growing up, you need to start considering that this function would require my attention, and probably you would not be able to pay attention to individual transactions. Uh, I think before I move ahead, one of a feature I heard from one of a founder was that I'm able to look into all the transactions myself. Why I need a CFO or why I need a finance function to be so robust. I know what is happening in my company. So my answer to him was that, okay, you are able to see today how many transactions get processed. He said 100 a day. I said, fair enough. You are processing 100 transactions today and you are pretty sure about all those 100. But when you project for the future, how many transactions would happen? It could be 10,000 a day. And I said, would you be able to see those 1,000 transactions? And his answer was probably no. And I said, would you like somebody junior to just keep on processing them? He said, okay, what's the problem in if a junior guy process them, not a senior person? I said, if you go back and look into the territory, I think in our accounting world, we generally talk about a fraud triangle, which we say if you give an opportunity, people would make a misrepresentation out of it. They would, I would not call them bribery or corruption, but that when there is an opportunity, people have incentive to do that. So that is where you need an individual who is responsible enough and understandable enough to uh, grow alongside your company to such size and scale. So that was my message to him. And I think after 4 months, he came back to me. I think you were right. My accountant has embezzled 50 lakhs from my company because I was not able to monitor, but he himself did certain transactions which have resulted in me losing 50 lakh rupees. And I said, that is not a cost even which you have incurred if you had a proper accountant in place. He said, fair enough. I understood that point. And as you are moving ahead, you would probably need a separate payroll accountant if you are more people friendly company or your business is more labor intensive. You need a special HR department which can rely with the payroll function. So you need to consider what stage your company has reached, and that assessment should result in you building up various platforms for you to scale up. A monthly information system, which is a MIS, which we generally say management information system. How quickly you need to develop, how detailed you need to develop. As we talked in our first slide, that taking a decision is also very important, and for taking a decision, you need a good data. So to get that data, probably MIS system needs to be set up today itself. And as you move ahead, you keep on relying upon them. That becomes very important for you to scale up as you grow. This is one of an activity which you should do while you are running parallelly. It should not happen that you are running and you are just ignoring a financial function. That should also be always on your radar that as I grow, my finance function should grow and all my stakeholders should come on board. I should not be taking this function lightly because ultimately I say cash is king and all the cash resides in finance function. So you have to be mindful of this. Uh, Another important fact about scaling up, I think a lot of companies who raise capital in US, they are using the route of emerging growth company. So while they use the route of emerging growth company, they are given certain exemptions with respect to how they would report their numbers or reporting of their internal controls. But if you actually analyze the data, 86% of companies have uh, material weakness on financial reporting reported in their F1 document. Now consider, I think I'm just putting you in a different spot. You become an investor. You know a company which has a material weakness with respect to their financial reporting, and there is another company which doesn't have a material weakness. Whom would you prefer? You would always say, okay, whatever I'm getting from this company is probably right, and whatever I'm getting from this company may be wrong. So you would probably put a premium on the company which has set their systems in place, and which is where that premium could be relevant for you as a founder when you are trying to tap capital markets. That becomes absolutely important for you to consider. And that is, I think, the common mistake I found all the founders focused. They are focused on their idea, development of an idea, building up the company, but they ignore this function. And as they ignore, finally it comes to bite them at some stage. Either it could result in lower valuations, incorrect reporting, government problems, tax demands, all these start coming in. And as I spoke about, embezzlement of funds. A lot of startups who have scaled up to a certain size without scaling up their operation finance function have found embezzlement as a normal practice. I think there was a study undertaken. 60% of the companies who had just scaled up in last 3 years had found their capital being eroded because some part of the employees embezzled the funds of the company or were not doing it appropriately correctly, which resulted in a higher tax demand for them. So that is where you need to be really focused that this is a function which you need to start scaling up as you move ahead. I think just to sum up, we talked about why financial reporting is important. Like it or not, financial reporting would be around as long as business are making and indeed spending money. So either you sell or spend, you need financial reporting for that. And as I said, and I'm not said, it's an analogy which is there that death and taxes are only two truths. Government always want to collect taxes, and unless until you have proper financial reporting in place, you would not be able to discharge your liabilities properly. So, and while you may be able to choose and prepare financial statements or financial reports or not, but if you can create a real-time dashboard, get a correct data for yourself, you can make right decisions. I think only idea would not take you forward. Adaptability to idea would take you forward. And to adapt to a new idea or to make a change to your existing idea, you will need data. And that data would come from company's financial integrity and moment's notice, which would help you take relevant decisions and for which you need to bring in your financial reporting in place. I think that was a brief which I wanted to share with you guys. Happy to hear if there are any questions which we can address. Kanchi, over to you.
Thank you so much, Rohit. That was extremely insightful. I do see questions coming in already, but for those of you, the other founders who are on the call, and if you do have any questions, please do leave it in the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen, and we'll start. I'll request Rohit to answer them for you. So Rohit, if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and ask the first question.
Absolutely, please go ahead.
So the first question is on exemptions. So are there any exemptions on compliance for startups registered under the Startup India program?
Yeah, so there are exemptions for compliance for a lot of startups. I think they have been given exemption under Income Tax Act with respect to the lower tax rates as well. A lot of companies, like if you are a startup and you don't have employees more than 20, you don't need to register under Provident Fund. So each act has certain parameters which restrict, but when we scale up, we need to be ready to get registered under these acts. And some of the acts would be becoming applicable immediately. Companies Act would become applicable to you immediately. Some of the acts might have some exemptions for you. Income Tax Act is a lower tax rate for you guys, or lower tax regime for certain number of years. Provident Fund gives you certain benefit. Gratuity Act gives you some benefit. But over the period, you need to bring up a finance model, which would, when we talk about scaling up, we need to be ready to scale up as and when we are ready to hit that dashboard. So I would say you should have a compliance tool ready with you that, okay, till this time I'm not applicable with this regulation, but over the period I would become applicable. And this is the threshold or this is the, say, a red flag. As soon as I reach this milestone, I need to start the complying with this regulation.
Perfect, thank you. Just if you don't mind, I'll add to that, to the founder who asked the question. We actually had a session back in September, which was Government Enabler for Startups, where Astha Grover, the AVP and head of Startup India, shared the government initiatives for startups. So towards the end of the session, she had shared a link which covers all the initiatives for startups. I'm just going to put that in the Q&A tab so y'all can click on it and save it for future reference. And I'll add it to the chat box as well, so feel free to take it from there. All right, so you should have received it via the Q&A tab and the chat box. And we'll just go ahead and take the next question. So the next question is more from an early stage startup. Even if we have not started our startup yet, how can one make financial reports just based on an idea and ask investors for seed capital?
That's an interesting one. I would say, as you are moving ahead with an idea, how to monetize that idea. You will have to start building up what would be the financial impact of it under various circumstances. You have to now start building up, okay, if I'm able to sell this idea in one city, I'm just building up an analogy over here. Maybe I will be able to tap, say, 100 outlets or 100 touch points. This would be my revenue. If I am able to get, say, another 15 crores, just giving an analogy that as you raise further capital, I would be able to tap 3 markets. And as you tap 3 markets, your revenue would become this. Now you have a revenue in place. That would be your primary driving factor. But to achieve that revenue, you will incur certain cost. So you have to start building up cost as well against it, and then create a financial plan for it. And as I mentioned, that we need to be considerate of working capital. Build up that working capital in your financial plan, and then once you show to investor that you have given a complete thought under various stages as well as various circumstances, then the investors would anyway like your idea to invest in. If they just hear an idea, okay, you have an idea, but how would you scale up, or how will you present, and how will this would look in a monetary terms? Probably that should not, as an investor, people would be reluctant to invest. But once they see something on a paper which has been well thought, you have to start considering what is your primary driving factor. I can give an example in a, I think this was happening in 2005 or 2008 when call centers were setting up and business was available. The important thing was whether you were able to set up a seat in your call center. So the primary driving factor was what time you would be able to hire and bring people on board and to give them a seat to operate. So the cost became the primary driving factor for them. Whereas in some cases, revenue, and mostly it is revenue which becomes the primary driving factor. So you need to first identify your primary driving factor to make a business plan, and basis that plan, what kind of a cost or what kind of other variables need to be built in needs to be considered in your business plan.
Lovely, thank you. So the next question is more from a tech perspective. Based on your experience with startups prior to scale up, do you think cloud SaaS tools like Zoho Books or Zoho Analytics cater to the needs for financial reporting adequately, or should they be looking at other custom solutions?
I think if you are a very early stage, these would help you out because they at least give you a guidance how to prepare it. But as you are trying to scale up and as you are meeting up multiple, they would probably need various iterations of it. And which is where your expertise in customizing it would become important. So you need to be considered that maybe that's a starting point, but over the period, your business plan has to be in your customized Excel files.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the next questions on templates. So they're asking, are there any standard MIS templates? And I'm going to merge that with another question that a founder has asked in terms of Excel templates for maintaining costs and budgets. So templates for MIS, cost budgets. Is there any resource that they could maybe access after the session?
So I would say MIS is a management information system. So it would be always proprietary to each company. You can have standard templates. I think we can refer you to certain standard templates to create it. But management information system is always proprietary. How you want to see your business? What are the key factors in your business? That would be always different from another company. So standard templates can only be a first line to prepare, but it's always, and it's when you have an idea, you should know what are the critical success factor for an idea, and that should actually flow into your financial systems and financial reportings. It should not be other way around that financial reporting dictate what is the key success factor for an idea. So standard can be used. There are available off the shelf also, but my suggestion would be you should create something and think through what are the key success factor for you to develop your business plan further.
All right, thank you. The next question is more from a cross-border transaction. So what care needs to be taken for cross-border transactions in terms of tax compliances?
Yeah, so I think while I was discussing about this in my presentation, I missed one aspect, and good you brought up this question, that Indian regulations have now been amended in the month of April, whereby you don't need to flip your structure. You can directly list the Indian company into foreign exchanges. So that's a change which has come in the month of April, though rules and regulations are still in progress. And unfortunately, this announcement has happened 3 or 4 times by the government. So this was one of our announcement in Atmanirbhar package, which was announced by the government. But in case you still want to flip your structure because some of the investors are comfortable listing a foreign venture into a foreign jurisdiction instead of listing an Indian venture, I would say there are multiple regulations, whether through income tax, there are GAR principles as well, which comes in. Then you have to be considerate about round tripping as well. This is a very difficult topic to handle when you are actually doing it, because you have to be considerate about RBI rules, tax rules, GAR rules, anti-money laundering as well, to make sure that you are complying with all before doing it. So my advice to you, if you want to really flip your structure, uh, it's a specialized task to be undertaken, and you reach out to. There are good consulting firms which can help you in this.
Perfect. Thank you so much. The next question is on if gig workers or consultants are treated under 94J, will they still come under EPF? And what about those that bill below 94J threshold?
So gig workers or consultants under Indian current regulation also there is a I would say a gray opinion whereby some of the legal consultants have still considered them to be covered under Employee Provident Fund because you keep on renewing them. But under new Code of Social Security, they would definitely come under this. So you need to be very mindful under the new Code of Social Security. As per the new regulation, which is yet to be notified, I think government is currently completely focused on farm bills, not focused on this Code of Social Security. So though it has got an assent from President on 28th September. So you can expect as soon as government is out on action, these would get notified. So under those Code of Social Security, these gig workers would also become eligible to be covered under a Provident Fund. So that's a change in regulation which has happened. So that is what my point was when we were discussing about regulation, that these regulations are not cast in iron. They would keep on changing. And as soon as they change, you need to be very mindful what impact they would bring on your business.
Okay. This is more on the valuation piece. We do have another session coming up on it, but if you'd like to touch upon it now, that'll be great. We have started an e-commerce startup in December 2018, but we are generating very small amounts of revenue. So how can we show the investors what our pre-money or post-money valuation is?
I would suggest that this is taken up in a valuation session completely, but I would say if you are, and my limited take on this would be, since I'm not expert on valuations, I would still say that you can bring up a business model which shows both pre and post money. And I have always advised all the promoters not to even consider pre or post money. You should always go to investors with 4 or 5 scenarios. You should say, okay, if you are ready to fund us 10 crores, this is where business would reach in 2 years. If you are ready to fund 40 crores, I can take this business to this level. So as you increase your funding, and you should actually say, this is the minimum I need, this is the maximum I need. And if you are agreeing my vision, you can actually take it to multiple levels. So I've seen a company which actually presented in this manner that, okay, if you are uh, strapped to invest in our ventures, invest only this much to start with. But give us a commitment that if we are able to achieve this number, you will fund us further. And as you fund us further, we as a business plan show you that we will take this venture to this level. So investors really like that idea. Okay, let's start with a X amount, but let's commit X plus Y for them. If they are able to achieve certain threshold for X, we will fund another Y. And that is where you will take that venture into a significantly different orbit and scale that venture further.
Okay, thank you. The next question is it good to make debt equity ratio a strategy, as it can determine what business we do and don't?
So I would say debt equity is a reality. You would at some stage you have to actually work on debt equity. You can't say that I would only work on equity. Equity is a very costly form of investment. Generally, IRRs are very high to which are promised. So debt would actually bring the cost or IRR down for your business to become effective. Now, what stage you bring debt is a topic you need to consider in your business plan. And that is also, as I mentioned, that one of the stakeholders is lenders. So you also need to liaise with lender at what stage they are ready to lend to you. If they are ready to lend at a very early stage and you feel comfortable about your product, you should actually liaise with it. I think currently the interest rates are generally hovering around 6 or 7% also in some cases for like company who are registered as an MSME. And all these founders, my expectation is all would become MSME after the revised guidelines which came under Atmanirbhar package. They will get an interest subsidy of around 2%, which would make them raise capital in the form of debt at around 7%. So once they are able to raise capital at 7% and mix and match with the equity which they have raised, your IRR or a target IRR would come down significantly. So debt equity is a way to go. Proportion is something which need to be assessed on each business basis.
Lovely. The next question is, thank you so much, first of all, for taking each of these questions. The next question is, where do we get financial data of competitors so that we compare and assess about our standing, understand where they stand?
Absolutely. I think if you know your competitors, I would say there are multiple databases which are available. Simplest way is if you know the name of the competitor, you can download the balance sheet of that competitor from the MCA portal as well. So if you just want to see the financial numbers straight away, you can you can download that balance sheet and compare it. But if you want to understand it better, how the competitors are doing, there are multiple database like Capital Line and Bloomberg, which are able to give you information with respect to your competitors as well. So you can access those database by subscribing to them and get that data also.
Great, thank you. One of the founders asking if they are bootstrapped and require such financial advice and assistance. Can you recommend any company that may be consulting at relatively lower costs?
I would say consult with me.
So what I can do is, towards the end of the session, I will leave my email ID in the chat box. And if you'd like to connect with Mr. Rohit, please just drop me a line and I'll connect you right after the session with him. So I think now would be a good time to drop my email ID before. So I will leave my email ID in the chat box and just write to me and I will connect you to Mr. Rohit. All right, y'all should have received it now. Perfect. So the next question is, I have two businesses that conflict with each other. Having two companies reduces my leverage. Does holding company make sense?
I think it's not a straightforward question to be answered. We have to understand the facts a little better. But hearing a question right now, I can say, why holding company? Why don't merge the both companies together? you have an option to merge them as well and make one company if they conflict with each other. You have an option to do that. Holding company could be another option. And some of them could be that you wind up a business in one venture and do a business in another venture. So there could be multiple opportunities. So I would suggest let's connect after the session on one-to-one basis to understand in detail to take the discussion forward.
Thank you. Perfect. One of the founders would like a copy of your presentation. So if you permit, I'll again request them to write to me and share it after the call. Or...
Sure, Kanchi.
Okay. So please feel free to write to me and I'll be more than happy to share a soft copy of the presentation with you. Okay. I think that brings us to the end of the session actually, because we're running out of time, and we do have a few questions that are more towards fundraising, and they are coming up in the follow-on sessions. So I will request the founders to park those questions just for a couple, another week or two, and we are going to host another session on fundraising and what do investors look for, the art of pitching. So all those sessions are coming up. So just please keep checking our social media handles, and you will get details on those sessions. But for now, honestly, thank you so very much, Rohit, for your valuable time and a wonderful session. You gave very, very practical advice to founders, from mistakes that others have made, so that they can prevent taking those, making those mistakes and learn earlier on and go forward from there. So truly appreciate all your advice and the time that you've taken. I'm sure they've got some very great insights that they can then go ahead and implement back with their colleagues in the finance team as well. So thank you so very much once again.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. It's great to present to the future entrepreneurs and founders. It's always great to present in front of those guys who actually undertake our work instead of us who keep on doing postmortem. So it's wonderful to present in front of them. Look forward for further opportunities as and when those arise. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you so much. So to all our founders on the call, our next session is another very interesting topic, which is product market fit with Mr. Rajan Anandan. It's next Friday on 11th of December at 4 p.m. The usual, we're sticking to every Friday at 4. So I've shared the link to register for the event in the chat box. Feel free to register for that event. And that brings us to the close of this session. So thank you so very much. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and see you next Friday.